The clock struck 7 on a Saturday night. The whole family gathered in the living room. The aroma of dinner still lingered in the air. And then those magic words, "Hey, hey, it's Saturday." Daryl Summers smiled on the TV screen, alongside the puppet RC Ostrich. Do you remember it, that moment, that feeling? An entire country would stop to watch today. Silence, emptiness. Everything has vanished. It's as if someone has erased our collective memories with a giant remote control. The shows that brought families together, that made Australia, have simply disappeared. Without a farewell, without warning, just absence. Where have the programs that marked generations of Australians gone? What happened to the afternoons of Midday? To the laughter of red faces? To the infectious energy of It's a Knockout? They were more than just entertainment. They were bridges between people, family traditions, conversations at school and work the next day. And have you felt that absence too? How many times have you searched the remote for something that reminded you of that time, only to find reality shows and news of tragedies instead? What I'm about to share will awaken memories you thought you had lost forever. And it will hurt. It will hurt because we've lost something precious. Before everything disappeared, Australian TV had soul. It had personality. In the 80s and 90s, families planned their weekends around those shows. Children begged to stay up just a little longer to watch Hey Hey It's Saturday. Housewives would pause their chores to catch Kerry Ann on Midday. It was an almost sacred routine. A ritual that brought people together, our accent, our humour, our quirks. Everything was there, represented during those magical hours. We laughed together at the blunders on red faces. We cheered together for the contestants on new faces. We were exhilarated by the antics on It's a Knockout. And how normal it all felt. How it seemed it would be like that forever. Saturday mornings were for rushing to the television to see what was on. Weekday afternoons were for having Midday as the background while life unfolded. The variety shows were like family members, distant relatives who visited regularly through that box in the living room. Where are you listening to me from now? Perhaps from the same room where you last watched those shows without knowing it was the last time. That false normality, that routine that felt eternal. Until it began to change. The first sign was subtle, almost imperceptible. A program changed time slots. Another lost a few minutes on air. Nothing alarming. Just minor adjustments to the schedule. It's normal, we thought. It will go back to normal soon, we believed. But then came the cancellation of Hey Hey It's Saturday in 1999, a shock. A program that had been on air for 28 years simply ended. It's just a break, we said to one another. It'll be back. And it did, briefly, only to leave again. Like a friend who reappears just to say goodbye for good. And the emptiness began to grow slowly, silently, like the tide that rises without us noticing, until we're up to our necks in water. Others followed the same path. The Mike Walsh Show, Midday, new faces. One by one, they disappeared, replaced by cheaper programs, faster, more superficial. Has silence ever hurt you more than words? The void in the programming was like a hole in the heart of Australian culture. And no one seemed to notice, or worse, they noticed but pretended it didn't matter. That it was progress, that it was the evolution of media, that it was inevitable, but it hurt. It hurt because we were losing something that was ours. Some signs of hope emerged. Rumours that Hey Hey could return, and it did, in 2009, for reunion specials. Australia stopped again, audience ratings exploded. It was as if the entire nation was saying, "We've been waiting for this." It was a sigh of relief, a testament that there was still room for that type of program, that there was still an audience, that it still mattered. For a moment, it seemed everything would return, that the tide had turned. That our programs were merely sleeping, not dead. Other classics were mentioned for possible comebacks. The public commented on social media. People reminisced about unforgettable moments. They shared old videos. Nostalgia was in the air, tangible, contagious. If you were in that situation, would you believe in this return or wait for another sign? Is hope really the last to die, or is it the first to deceive us? Because what followed was even more cruel. The attempt to bring back Hey Hey lasted for just one season, and then, once again, silence. Like a second goodbye, more painful than the first, like a second chance wasted. Like a wound reopened only to bleed more, reality hit with brutal force. It wasn't just a shift in programming. It was a cultural change. It was the end of an era. The executives of the networks had already decided that format had no place anymore. It was too expensive, too labor-intensive, too risky. Social media, streaming services, imported formats, all of these seemed safer, more predictable. Australian variety shows, with their peculiarities, unique timing, and characteristic humour, were deemed relics, museum pieces, and presenters. Icons like Daryl Summers, Kerry-Anne Kennerley, and Ian Turpie were gradually pushed off the screens, replaced by younger faces. Less distinctive voices, more international personalities. Less Australian. What hurts more, keeping silent about this loss or speaking the truth about what really happened? Because what happened was an erasure, an erosion of our television identity. A silent blow to our popular culture, and we let it happen. We passively watched as our shows were taken away, as our voices were silenced on TV, as our television was transformed into something generic, impersonal, and soulless. Breathe, tell me, would you have fought or would you have stayed silent too? Something was being prepared behind the scenes, something that few noticed. The broadcasters were doing a cold calculation. How much was our cultural identity worth? What was the cost of keeping these programs on air versus importing foreign formats? The answer came like a tsunami. It was not worth it, not financially. And so, in the name of profit, our collective memory was put up for sale. Total clearance, and no one bought, no one stood firm. The last of the holdouts began to fade away. Rove Live, an attempt to keep the spirit of studio shows alive, also came to an end. Good News Week followed the same path. One by one, they disappeared, and the worst part, almost no one realized the seriousness of what was happening. It was akin to losing a language, a tradition, a part of what made us Australians. Write in the comments a word that captures what this story evokes in you. Anger, nostalgia, helplessness, because what I am about to reveal goes beyond the simple disappearance of programs. It is about a conscious decision, a plan, a deliberate strategy to change not only what we watched, but who we were as an audience. The truth is this: there was a meeting, not one, but several, in closed rooms with TV executives, with spreadsheets, graphs, and projections. The verdict: Australians needed to be globalised. Our television had to be less local and more international. The accents needed to be softened. The humour more generic. The formats standardised. It was easier to buy a ready-made format from abroad than to create something authentically Australian, safer, more predictable. And so they decided for us, without our consent, without our knowledge. They decided that we no longer needed Hey Hey It's Saturday, that we could live without Midday, that It's a Knockout was far too outdated, that our humour, our timing, our way of being on TV was ... disposable. How many times did you remain silent while this was happening? How many times did you change the channel and accept what was available? Because we all did this, we all adapted, we complained a bit, missed it, but moved on. And they counted on that. They counted on our passivity, on our ability to forget, to conform, and then came the final confirmation: there would be no turning back. In 2016, Daryl Summers stated in an interview, "Times have changed, television has changed. The kind of program we used to make doesn't have a place anymore." It was a capitulation, a white flag, the acknowledgement of a defeat that was not only his but ours as well. Streaming services arrived in full force: Netflix, Stan, Disney+, with billion-dollar productions, with global reach, with algorithms that understood our tastes better than we did ourselves. And where did Australia fit into all this? Where was our voice, our accent, our peculiar sense of humour? Diluted, stifled, forgotten. Today's young Australians grow up without their own television references, without those shared moments that united previous generations. without that feeling that there is something on TV that speaks specifically to them as Australians. Leave here what you've carried in silence for so long. That special memory of a show that no longer exists. That moment which is etched in your mind because now we know it wasn't an accident. It wasn't natural evolution, it was a choice. A choice we didn't make, but it changed our culture forever. It's too late now, irrevocably late. The studios have been dismantled. The presenters have aged or moved on to other projects. The audience has splintered into 1,000 different platforms. Shared attention, that feeling that the whole country is watching the same thing at the same time, hardly exists anymore. Recent attempts to revive these formats have failed. The 2010 reboot of Hey Hey lasted only one season. An Australian version of Saturday Night Live in 2016 was cancelled after just a few episodes. It seems we've lost not only the shows, but the ability to create new ones that capture that magic. It's as if we've forgotten how to make Australian television for Australians. As if we've lost confidence in our own voices, and the saddest part, this hasn't just happened with our variety shows. It has affected our drama series, our children's programs, our comedy, our entire television identity. It was a silent blow, a gradual erasure, a cultural slow-motion murder. And now we are here, orphaned from our own programs, surviving on memories, on clips from YouTube, on nostalgic conversations, but perhaps there is still a chance. Not to bring back exactly what we lost, but to create something new that captures that same Australian spirit. Something authentic, something that is ours. Something that speaks with our voice, our accent, our unique sense of humour. And it starts with memory, with the recognition of what we have lost, with the appreciation of what we had. So, leave your city in the comments. Let's see how far this voice echoes. Share which program marked your life, which moment you will never forget. Because as long as we remember, they do not die completely. While we share these memories, we keep alive something of the spirit of that time. If this story touched you, leave a. If you know someone who lived through that golden era of Australian television, share this with them. Let's create together a living memorial for those programs. And who knows, perhaps someone is watching someone with the power to change things, to give a new chance to truly Australian television. Do you want me to bring the continuation of this story? Right, I want part 2. Because there is much more to be revealed about what happened behind the scenes of this